sure that in progress of science and technology could describe the future was going to take place, it would sound so absurd, ridiculously conservative. On the other hand, if by some miracle a prophet could describe the future exactly as it was going to take place, his predictions would sound so absurd that everybody would laugh him to scorn. This has proved to be true in the past, and it will undoubtedly be true, even more so, of the century to come.
The companies have more and more power to decide what can stay up and what must be taken down. They take advantage of our desire for ease, our resistance to effort, our resistance to challenge. And I think over time, if we're not already there, it will interfere with our ability to have critical thinking. It interferes potentially with our ability to be challenged. To the extent that we're limiting expression, we're also limiting challenge. We're limiting effort. People shouldn't be surprised if in the future there's less information available to them, less edgy, less provocative information available online. And I think that we will be a poorer society, we'll be poorer societies for it.
And yet, you know, human beings are almost infinitely adaptable. Look at the incredible changes we've experienced and survived from the Stone Age to the present time. And yet even greater changes are still to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, the origins of the environmental movement as we see it began back in 1968 when the Club of Rome was formed. The Club of Rome has been described as a crisis think tank which specialises in crisis creation. The main purpose of this think tank was to formulate a crisis that would unite the world and condition us to the idea of global solutions to local problems. In a document called The First Global Revolution, authored by Alexander King and Bertrand Schneider, on pages 104 and 105, it stated, "In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers, of course, will be caused by human intervention that will require a global response."
Our planet is changing, and it's happening faster than we ever imagined. Climate change, caused by human activity, threatens our very existence. And the time we have to act is running out. We need solutions, we need action, and we need them now.
Rainforests, ecological marvels, millions of years in the making. Rainforests provide water, food, and livelihoods for billions of people around the world. They contain a staggering diversity of life. They create the oxygen we breathe and regulate our climate. They are our life support system. But rainforests are at grave risk. Every second of every day, an irreplaceable rainforest the size of a football field is destroyed. Powerful economic and political interests are driving their destruction to produce beef, palm oil, and paper, wiping out countless species from existence, marginalizing the poor and deepening inequality, threatening the survival of indigenous communities, and destroying the best solution for climate change that we have.
In 1992, former President of the United States, George Bush Sr. said, "Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action will be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level." Cutting through the code, I want everyone to consider what the words profound reorientation of all human society and unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources actually means. For everyone here tonight not familiar with Agenda 21, I would suggest that this is the beginning of your learning curve, not the end. And it must become clear that Agenda 21 is about controlling every aspect of our lives: how we eat, what we eat, how much we eat, how we move around, food production, the amount of food, and where we even live.
Imagine if we had a planetary computer that could tell us exactly what we needed to do to protect planet Earth. A system that was capable of providing us information about every tree, every species, all of our natural resources. How could we use all of that data to build a better world? True innovation hinges on our ability to see things differently. It means breaking boundaries and looking between the lines in an effort to solve some of the world's toughest challenges. Planetary scale innovation is needed now more than ever. Because if we truly care about each other, then we have got to care about this planet that we all call home.
However, the most intelligent inhabitants of that future world won't be men or monkeys. They'll be machines, the remote descendants of today's computers. Now, the present-day electronic brains are complete morons, but this will not be true in another generation. They will start to think, and eventually they will completely outthink their makers. I suspect that organic or biological evolution has about come to its end, and we are now at the beginning of inorganic or mechanical evolution, which will be thousands of times swifter. Looking as far into the technological future as I dare, I'd like to describe the invention to end all inventions. I call it the replicator, and it's simply a duplicating machine. But it's a duplicating machine that can make an exact copy of anything. Can we imagine a world in which objects can be made as easily as today we can make books? The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic, because the future is not merely an extension of the present with bigger and better machines and cities and gadgets. It will be fundamentally different, and many of the things we take for granted will one day pass away as completely as spinning wheels and sedan chairs and oil lamps. And that is why the future is so endlessly fascinating, because try as we can, we'll never outguess it.
the world's first planetary computer. We're talking about an AI-driven platform that puts the full power of Earth-scale data right at people's fingertips, allowing them to come together and solve some of the greatest environmental and sustainability challenges we face today. Sure, it's an ambitious idea, but its promise is unprecedented. For the first time, we'd be able to fully understand what resources are where, how fast they're being depleted, and more importantly, what could and should we be doing with all of our natural resources.
Fear of environmental crisis would be used to create a world government and UN central direction. From a report in the 1976 UN's Habitat I conference, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, therefore contributes to social injustice. In a report from the President's Council on Sustainable Development, we need a new collaborative decision process that leads to better decisions, more rapid change, and more sensible use of human, natural and financial resources in achieving our goals. And at the same time, Harvey Reuven, Vice Chair of the Wildlands Project, says individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective.
No matter how you view it, we're now facing one of the most existential challenges our species has ever had to think about. We have to somehow figure out how to mitigate and adapt to rapidly changing climates, ensure resilient water supplies, sustainably feed a human population rapidly growing to 10 billion, all while stemming a global and catastrophic loss of biodiversity. We may know how fast species are going extinct, but we don't actually know how many species there are, or how many trees there are. We're facing our last real opportunity to ask ourselves the most fundamental of questions. How are we going to solve these planetary scale challenges?
Hay un dicho que seguramente vos lo conocés. Dios perdona siempre. Nosotros perdonamos de vez en cuando. La naturaleza no perdona nunca.
Queimadas, desmatamento, enchentes, oceanos em estado de alerta, toneladas de lixo na terra e nas águas, desastres ambientais sem precedentes. A natureza clama. O Santo Padre já invocou nossa consciência no seu Laudato Si, quando lembrou do cuidado com a nossa casa comum, descrita pelo Cântico de São Francisco como uma boa mãe que nos acolhe nos seus braços. Nossa Mãe Terra que nos sustenta e produz variados frutos.
Aliás, eu convido mesmo aqueles que nos estão a seguir que não olhemos para esta encíclica, como às vezes alguns leem, uma espécie de encíclica verde só para alguns, não é?
Sobre o tema da ecologia.
Só as questões ecológicas, só as questões ambientais, do clima. Não é isso. Este conceito de ecologia integral, como aqui se diz, é para todos, para todas as dimensões, todas as expressões da vida débil, da vida frágil, da vida ameaçada. Portanto, é a terra e aos pobres, porque os pobres são terra, nós somos terra, não é? Aliás, é uma das afirmações, não é? Nós somos terra, não somos só terra, não é? Matéria, mas somos terra. Aliás, a comunidade católica começa todas as quaresmas exatamente por lembra-te, homem, que és terra, que és pó, e ao podes voltar. Mas somos pó, terra, com o sopro divino, com o sopro de Deus. Assim é, no fundo, um princípio teológico fundamental.
E se somos terra, temos que olhar para a terra de forma diferente?
Para os pobres e para os pobres e para a terra, sim. Essa afirmação de São Francisco a dizer que ela é mãe e que é irmã é uma afirmação brilhante, não é? Nós estamos próximos da terra, a terra está próxima de nós somos a terra, mas ao mesmo tempo, portanto, é uma irmã, mas é uma mãe que nos sustenta.
O documento de título Em Caminho pelo Cuidado da Casa Comum foi elaborado por uma equipe de membros de diversos setores do Vaticano, como o da Educação Católica, do Desenvolvimento Social e Humano e a Secretaria de Estado. O secretário para as Relações do Vaticano com os outros países, Cardeal Gallagher, afirmou que o material é uma contribuição para relançar a riqueza do conteúdo da encíclica Laudato Si. A encíclica Laudato Si foi escrita pelo Papa Francisco em 2015 e oferece uma série de reflexões sobre o meio ambiente. Um dos pontos fortes do documento é o conceito de ecologia integral, que trabalha não só o cuidado e a não exploração à natureza, mas também a qualquer tipo de abuso e pobreza que isso possa acarretar ao ser humano. Na oração que o Papa Francisco fez pelo fim da pandemia no mês de março, ele afirmou: é tempo de escolher o que conta e não o que passa, de separar o que é necessário daquilo que não é. Entre os que apresentaram o documento, o secretário do Setor de Desenvolvimento Social e Humano, que destacou que essa mudança de mentalidade sobre o uso do meio ambiente precisa partir dos cristãos, que enxergam na criação a obra e a revelação de Deus, o Criador.
But there is still hope, where a different future awaits us, where faith unites us to make rainforests a shared spiritual priority, where we teach our communities that rainforests are a sacred trust, where we feed a growing planet without converting rainforests, where we work with companies to ensure their products are deforestation-free, and where we make sure that governments protect forests and the rights of indigenous peoples. This is the future where we do what is right. But we need to come together, affirm that protecting rainforests is a moral responsibility for all people of faith, mobilize a movement built on the values we share across our religions and spiritual traditions, stewardship of the earth and care for creation, a respect for human rights and human dignity, social and economic justice. The Interfaith Rainforest Initiative is doing just that. From the Amazon to the Congo Basin to the forests of Southeast Asia, rallying faith communities to act. We must end deforestation because her life depends on it. His life depends on it. Their future depends on it. We all depend on it.
In 1987, Mikhail Gorbachev, also a member of Club of Rome, said, "We are moving toward a new world order, the world of communism, and we shall never turn off that road." He also quoted in 1996 Monetary and Economic Review on page 5, "The environmental crisis will be the international disaster that will unlock the new world order, one world government." In 1992 came the Earth Summit, which produced the document called the Earth Charter. This document was co-written by Maurice Strong, long-time globalist, elitist, member of Club of Rome, and Mikhail Gorbachev. Both Strong and Gorbachev stated that it was hoped that this document would be adopted as the new 10 Commandments, with environmentalism as the new one world religion. Out of this summit came Agenda 21.
I must be missing something because every single thing that happens today is climate change. Kids in schools are being brainwashed. Parents don't seem willing to strike back. Universities fill the heads of their students with global warming rubbish. The corporate world is virtually exercising a form of blackmail. Superannuation funds say, if this particular corporation or that particular corporation doesn't have a climate change strategy, we won't invest. Banks say we won't provide funding for a coal-fired power station. Everything's climate change. The floods in England are climate change. The tornadoes in America are climate change. The bushfires are climate change.
But now we just have this situation where the UN is pushing this idea, which, shows that this climate change thing is as much about a religion, a new materialist religion of globalism than it is about anything else. It's not just about the climate change. The climate change, the environment, that's only the kind of the proximate cover issue. The real issue, I think, that's really at the heart of this is about what kind of society are we? Are we, a free society where individuals have control over our lives, or is this a society where we give that all away to very large organizations and governments that regulate and control what people do? And I think that, because there is...
No. And also, there's another thing. This is an age of faith, but without a religious faith to belong to. Right? The whole climate change movement is a faith. It has all the characteristics, in some ways, almost of a cult. It's impossible to argue with its devotees. And if you raise even the slightest stats, even if you say, which is often my approach towards things of this kind, look, you may be right. I'm perfectly prepared to accept that you are right, but at the moment you don't seem to me to have proved it beyond all reasonable doubt. That's not enough.
No.
Only submission is enough, in which is quite similar to Islam, which also believes very much in submission. If you submit, that's okay. Otherwise, you're a denier, and actually, denier is a new word for heretic. Heretic now is a joke word, which isn't used seriously and doesn't do you any damage. But to be called a denier with the insidious connotation of your being equated with a Holocaust denier is devastating.
Carbon dioxide is 0.04% of the atmosphere. That is over the whole world. Human beings create only 3% of that 0.04% over the whole world. And Australia, human beings, manufacturers, cows breaking wind, bushfires, are responsible for 1.3% of the 3% of the 0.04%. Is anyone seriously suggesting that we should stand the economy on its head, force up energy prices, damage business, jeopardise employment because 0.04% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide and coal produces carbon dioxide? Where is there a political leader who'll stand in the public place and say this is unadulterated rubbish and we are damaging our children? Forget the economy. Forget the fact that energy prices will go through the roof if we rely solely on renewable energy. I'm worried about our kids. They're being fed this garbage from kindergarten to primary school to secondary school to university, in the media, in business, in politics. It's a disease, and it seems to have us by the throat. Angela Merkel in Germany has approved an $88 billion spending package, a carbon pricing scheme. I think she means carbon dioxide. Germany are going to tax flying to make it more expensive, so you'll have to catch a train rather than an aeroplane. There'll be incentives to buy electric cars, even though the method of generating the electricity may well be dearer and produce more emissions than petrol-powered vehicles. There'll be tax breaks for train tickets. But the Greens in Germany have said not enough. Quote, "You've failed in humanity's task of protecting the climate. We have a serious crisis on our hands worldwide. We are feeding our young people with dishonesty. These people can't define climate change. They can't define what's causing it, if it is existing. And the climate's always changed. They talk about carbon emissions when actually they mean carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is 0.04% of the world's atmosphere. And economies everywhere are being stood on their head. If we genuinely want to fight for the future of our kids, we're going to have to fight against this intellectual rubbish. And it appears that only a few of us are prepared to step into the ring.
This is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit. Every nation that signed on to Agenda 21 has its local Agenda 21 plan. People in the United States are completely unaware of this. If I go out and talk about this, the United States press attacks me and calls me, which is totally ridiculous. It is but it's not a theory. It's a fact. The three pillars of United Nations Agenda 21 are economy, ecology, and equity, the 3 E's. And everyone sort of thinks that they know what that means, the idea of social equity. It must mean that, everyone's going to have access to clean water and clean air, and no one's property is going to be used as a dumping ground because they are at a poverty level. But really what social equity is about impoverishing huge portions of the population and bringing down the developed nations. Everything that we're looking at now is destined to collapse our economies. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. And what major corporations want in this development is to be able to have full movement of workers without borders or boundaries, to be able to move their goods through without regulations, and to reduce wages. And so this is the goal. So this is what you find with social equity. And of course, economy and ecology is about, these are the 3 circles: economy, ecology, and social equity. And where they meet in the center is balance. But really that balance is a communitarian balance. So it's not balance of well-being of the people. What it is it's a balance for corporations so that they can exploit and control and have populations in an area, in tightly packed, dense areas, so that they can be surveilled and managed. And this is what that balance looks like as far as the development of a totalitarian state is. The mainstream media is owned by 5 major corporations, and you're not going to get this information from the mainstream press. So you need to be your own press. You need to educate yourself. You need to get out there and educate your neighbors, your community, your real community. You need to help your children understand that they're being indoctrinated from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate school. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to others.
Pope Francis, in the year 2015, wrote his famous Laudato Si encyclical, and in this book lies the very plan. In the early pages of the encyclical, Pope Francis states that the climate belongs to all and is meant for all because it is a common good. Also, he states that the climate needs urgent support due to the emission of carbon dioxide and other polluting gases that humans have caused. His first solution to reduce those gases is to make it more expensive to purchase them.
The first nation to follow suit was France in November 2018. President Emmanuel Macron raised the price of gas by 7.6 cents per liter or 30 cents per gallon. The President of France, by doing so, followed through with the commands of the Pope. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise because President Macron is a former Rothschild banker and was educated under the Jesuits. In the year 2008, Macron was hired under the Rothschilds and quickly grew from an analyst to a partner. 2 years later, Macron began his campaign to run for president and subsequently earned the nickname the candidate of the Rothschild. Macron was backed by the Vatican and won the election. Pope Francis congratulated the new player and gave Macron the title of first and only honorary canon of St. John Lateran. The honorary canon is a tradition that dates back to the 15th century, which means defender and advocate of the Christian Church and protector of Palestine and the Catholic faith. The emperor or president sworn in with this title means that they will defend the Catholic Church and her bishops. This is exactly what Macron has been doing. Macron is not a president, but rather a little priest in office to give back to the papacy the power it once had.
From his encyclical, we find his supposed solution to world problems, which is a plot to turn the United States into a union of church and state, an image to the theocratic government of the Vatican. Pope Francis's Laudato Si declares the following: Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationships with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the world. It, Sunday, protects human action from becoming empty activism. It, Sunday, also prevents that unfettered greed and sense of isolation which makes us seek personal gain to the detriment of all else. The law of weekly rest forbade work on the seventh day. Rest opens our eyes to the larger picture and gives us renewed sensitivity to the rights of others. And so the day of rest, centered on the Eucharist, sheds its light on the whole week and motivates us to greater concern for nature and the poor.
In order for Pope Francis's agenda to be implemented, the government will either have to become the authoritative interpreter of the scripture for all the citizens of the government, or else it will have to put itself in the place of God and authoritatively declare that observances established by the state, which it calls the Lord's, are the Lord's indeed, although the word of the Lord declares the contrary. Is the United States government ready to take either of these positions? Is the Congress of the United States ready to force the government of the United States to the alternative of taking one or the other of these positions?
Taking either of these positions by the government would be nothing less than for this enlightened nation in this period of the 21st century to assume the place, the power, and the prerogatives of the governments of the Middle Ages in enforcing the dogmas and the definitions of the theologians and executed the arbitrary and despotic will of the Church.